Hello, my name's Art Granado, Sheriff of Reeves County, and this is Texas County Voice, a podcast for all 254 counties. Thank you all for listening.
Hello and welcome to Texas County Voice. I'm Jody Seaburn with the Texas Association of Counties. Today we are previewing County Magazine, something we do every quarter when the new magazine comes out. So Mary Huber, Managing Editor of County Magazine, is here to talk about the new issue. And also with us, our colleague, Angela Maldonado. Hello, Angela.
Hello.
Welcome to Texas County Voice.
I'm glad you're here this time.
I know, I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's Mary and I, instead of the duo comedy team that we usually are, we're now a trio.
I hope I can keep up.
All right, Mary, tell us.
All right.
The cover story is another in our series of Texas County Storytellers.
This is actually our second Texas County Storytellers story. And for those who don't know or haven't seen the first one, Texas County Storytellers is a new series initiative we're doing here at the Texas Association of Counties, and we are doing deep dives into some of the issues affecting counties and how they're doing incredible work addressing those. So we've been going and traveling across the state, focusing on one county per quarter and highlighting the things they do that make a difference in their communities. And so this one, which is on the cover, took us to Galveston County. And Angela's here to tell us about that. She traveled to Galveston and worked on this story. So tell us a little bit about the cover.
No, it was a great story to cover. We drove down to Galveston to learn about the new mental health hospital they built out in Lamarck, Texas, because the new center fills a gap that has been needed in terms of those services since the 2008 Hurricane Ike basically kind of shut down the hospital in the area that had 20 psychiatric beds for the community. So the hospital that they built used to be a former health center, and the biggest thing is that it's a real partnership between the county, the state, and also federal funds to get it going. It was a really interesting story to learn about how a whole community came together to build this hospital to serve the county and also just keep the services local. So this was a really big deal for them.
It's a great story, and it really covers and touches a lot of ground. I know mental health is a statewide problem now, and there are a lack of mental health beds for all counties across the state. So how does this center in particular help address that, and what kind of model does it offer for other communities?
It's true. The officials that we talked to really wanted this project to be almost like a blueprint, that they want other counties to be able to be empowered to start their own kind of partnership in terms of building mental health facilities. Galveston Judge Mark Henry said that he was noticing people come through his court with cases that really started as almost mental health calls. And he was saying that mental health isn't a crime. So another counterpart to that is Galveston County Sheriff Jimmy Fullen basically said law enforcement in Galveston County will be mental health trained. He said his friend has a son that has mental health problems, and she called to thank him because an officer saw that and was able to kind of calm him down and not have him end up arrested like he had a couple times before. So she was really thankful that this is now kind of in practice.
And the Texas County Storytellers, our projects are not just the stories that we publish in County Magazine, but there's video component. There'll be a future podcast episode coming out of the Galveston County work that you did. So you were part of a small team who went to Galveston County.
Exactly. It was me and Nia Russell. She was on video and did a lot of the multimedia work. Alyssa Regulski, she manages the blog, so she'll be doing some blog posts. We have a video version of the story, also a couple podcast episodes to accompany.
We look forward to those other pieces that'll be rolling out in the days and few weeks to follow the publication of the story. And you can find the story and more about Texas County Storytellers on county.org/storytellers. Mary, as is often the case with County Magazine, there are other stories in it that could easily have been the cover if it hadn't been for the great work that Angela and our colleagues did on Galveston County.
Yeah, we've done a lot of really big stories lately. A lot of counties doing incredible things out there.
Great stories out there.
Yeah.
across our 254 counties.
Yes. And we've been traveling a lot here at TAC, so we've been really introduced to a lot of cool stuff happening. And another story in the magazine has to do with rural EMS, which is something we've talked about before in the magazine, but I went on a trip to Washington County actually last year to learn a bit about their department, did a tour of some of their facilities. They actually are one of the only rural counties, if not the only in Texas, that has its own helicopter air medical program. So it's really unique in that they have a single helicopter and it's stocked with everything that you would imagine in an ER, which is usually not things that they have in these, kind of rural spots. So they're able to do emergency aid immediately as soon as they get in the air on the way to the hospital. And, usually that's not the case because you're using regular ambulances and having to transport people to trauma centers that are an hour away. So response times can be, a lot slower. And so with this helicopter, they're able to cut their response times, and really it has saved lives. And you'll hear a story from one of their patients in the article that was transported with the helicopter, and they were able to save his life. It was probably someone that wouldn't have survived otherwise. So it is also a great model for other counties, and Washington County has really made clear their accessibility to talk to other small counties about what they've done and how they've maintained this program, which is basically they're doing it at no cost to the county, very small cost.
It's a great story. I think I was the editor on that story, wasn't
I
I?
think so. You're the best editor. All important issues, mental health and health in general and rural health care. I mean, all of this stuff, we'll have more stories out this year diving into that topic and the struggles that small counties face with providing health care. So yeah, stay tuned. There's more of that to come.
There's more to come. There are always stories to tell. You asked me if I would be interested in writing about time capsules, and I said, yes, I would. Because you can't write about time capsules in Texas and not tell the story of Old Rip. And I know we've breezed by Old Rip in a previous episode. But first, the story is actually about time capsules, and so there were no shortage of counties that have done time capsules over the years. It was a very popular thing to do in the late 19th and early 20th century when towns and counties were founded. And 100 years later, a lot of towns and counties, in celebrating their centennials or sesquicentennials, dug up these capsules and put new ones in. So that part of the story, we look at Jacksboro and Jack County, where they buried a collection of time capsules in 1975 to celebrate their 100th anniversary, and then 50 years later, in 25, dug them up, and they have put some new ones. The common things that you usually find in a time capsule are newspapers, letters, photographs, coins, nothing big, just kind of everyday stuff.
Mementos of the time.
Mementos of the time, trying to speak to a future generation, and hopefully that future generation will be interested enough to. So I spoke with Jack County Clerk Vanessa James about the small archival mystery that led to the discovery or the reminder that they had a time capsule. As I said, there were no shortage of counties and towns that we could have talked to, but there is a shortage of space when writing a story. So another county that we focus on is Clay County, where they had faced a similar situation to Jack County and opened a capsule that had been buried in 1973 for their centennial. But the story comes out of Eastland County, and it is the time capsule story of all time capsule stories, and that's the story of Old Rip. And I get excited about Old Rip for a few reasons. One, I grew up in that general part of Texas. I grew up in Taylor County, which is a couple counties west of Eastland County, where Old Rip was found. But the story of Old Rip is just wild. Eastland County built a courthouse in 1897. They put a time capsule in the building's cornerstone, and the county clerk at the time put, in addition to the usual stuff that you find in time capsules, put a horny toad in the time capsule, or horned toad. We know them. If you grew up in West Texas, they're called horny toads. They're not frogs, they're lizards. Put it in this time capsule. They sealed it in the cornerstone. 31 years later, Eastland County needs to build a new courthouse, so they're tearing down the old courthouse to build a new one. They open the time capsule, big civic celebration, and lo and behold, the horny toad is still alive. Now, Mary, there are doubters that the horny toad found alive.
But they are wrong.
The horny toad, we're not going to get into that because that hardly matters. What matters is the story of Old Rip. So they named the horny toad Old Rip after Rip Van Winkle, and it becomes this celebrity. The horny toad travels the country, meets President Calvin Coolidge in the White House. But sadly, about a year after Old Rip was revived or rescued from the time capsule, he died. And today you can see like a little Vladimir Lenin in the county courthouse of Eastland lies the embalmed corpse of Old Rip. They have a celebration every fall. It's called Rip Fest, I believe.
Yeah, we gotta go for that.
So yeah, tack trip coming up. So it's a great story, but the capper is, if you are a fan of Warner Brothers cartoons, and I think we've all seen Warner Brothers. Well, one of the best known Warner Brothers cartoons is about a demolition worker who's tearing down a building, finds a time capsule, opens it up, and a frog jumps out with a top hat and a cane singing. That cartoon was inspired by the story of Old Rip.
Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal. Send me a kiss, my boy.
And your passion for Old Rip shows through in the story.
I love the story of Old Rip. I first heard about Old Rip when I was a kid growing up, because I had my grandmother, one of my grandmothers was from Eastland County. So
Did you have to take the oath?
I have not taken the oath.
We don't want to give away the whole story, but there is an oath.
There is an oath, and I spoke with Eastland County Clerk Kathy Gentho about what Old Rip means to the county, and it has come to define the city of Eastland, but also the county. How could it not?
It's a great story. You got to open the magazine just for that.
There are more stories like that to tell across the state. So there is one more story that we want to mention about the new issue. Tell us about it.
I mean, there's so many great things in the issue. This one I thought was really important and helpful to counties because flood related, and obviously counties across Texas face flooding and disasters. And Texas AgriLife Extension has put out a really great resource about green infrastructure, nature-based infrastructure that helps with flooding. So this includes building bioswales and constructed wetlands. And these, like when it rains, this kind of nature-based infrastructure is able to absorb the water. It prevents runoff and flooding. It helps to remove pollutants. It prevents erosion. So it's really great in so many ways. And, one of the biggest ways is it's beautiful. It helps beautify spaces. And a lot of counties don't necessarily have the resources to imagine and build this kind of infrastructure. So this tool from AgriLife helps to kickstart that process and to think about the engineering and what kind of models there are for smaller counties and larger counties alike that haven't thought about this as a possible flood mitigation option. So it's really interesting, great resource.
Well, good. And again, you can find all these stories we have talked about in the new issue of County Magazine, available on county.org. Print copies will be arriving soon in county offices.
Well, I'm excited for everyone to see this issue, and I'm excited to be here with y'all, as always.
It was really fun to work with you and Alyssa and Nia and travel down to Galveston. We've been traveling a lot, so it's been great to kind of learn more and get out there.
And one other thing I'd like to mention before we sign off is if you haven't done so already, register for our legislative conference coming up at the end of August. We will be previewing some of the issues we expect will be hot topics at the legislature when they convene in January. And you can find more at county.org/ledge conference. Thank you for joining us. And one final thing, Angela, this is our 99th episode, so our next one will be our 100th.
Huge 100th.
Something to look forward to. Meantime, thank you for joining us for this episode, this look at County Magazine. I'm Jody Sebring. Texas County Voice is a production of the Texas Association of Counties about the people, issues, and all things important to Texans and Texas counties. To learn more about Texas counties and the Texas Association of Counties, visit county.org. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.